Hey there, shopping manager. You're listening to the Coming In edition of the Shop Talk Show. I'm Dave Rupo, and he is Chris Coyer.
Right.
Hey,
Dave's
Chris.
all hopped up on meetings.
I've been in meetings, man.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
amazing.
meetings are great. I went on vacation. That's cool. Then you come back, and then you have like more work. So, because you have to read everything everyone said. So, and then you have to. That's hard, man. Catching up on, like you have to be like, what transpired this week? Why is everyone, So
It was a lot.
It's like a mystery. It's like that game we're playing in the Discord, Clues by Sam, which is
Clues
great.
by Sam is popping off in the Discord. And then I see one where everybody seems to be getting no hints days. That means you crushed it. And then I do it, and I'm like, I don't know that I should be here. I'm very stupid.
I did. Yeah, everyone's like all green check marks. It's kind of like Wordle in the scoring, right? Like you did like 5 guesses and got none wrong or whatever. And so but yeah, it's a puzzle where you try to figure out who the criminals and the innocents are, and they all have clues like Sally's neighbor is innocent and things like that. So
exactly, it's a 5x5 grid of random people, and there's clues on the cards, but you don't get to see the clue until you've essentially answered the previous clue or something, or figured out who's a criminal or an innocent. And you can always figure it out. There's always a logical next choice. You can click anybody on the grid and just guess if they're a criminal or innocent. But if you guess, this pop-up comes up that says like, nope, this one was not one that, you're guessing, because the logic in the puzzle so far has not given you permission to click this one yet. And then when you hit it, you're so like, oh, it takes one of your little check marks away. And you feel like a dummy.
Yeah, today was a day where everyone's getting all 5 check marks, no misses.
It was an easy day on Samster? Okay.
No, it was a hard day for me. I was 1 out of 5.
Oh my gosh.
I almost failed because I
literally have not solved one yet. I've only done like 4 or something, but without one little frustrating moment where I'm like, I'm just gonna guess real quick.
Makes you feel like a genius when you do get it, though.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It was unclear. There was some speculation whether they, did they get little AI help? It seems like to do it every day, and it's absolutely free, and there's absolutely no business model, seems like an awful lot of work without some assist.
That's like AI keeps those puzzles coming. I'm fine. I'm fine with that. But like, it's the logic that's kind of interesting. I actually kind of want to talk to the person who made it or read something about it, because
maybe we can
the gate of like, I guess you could just do it as a sequence, like you need whatever array item 4 to be true before you can see array item 5 or whatever, but like the gates seem kind of arbitrary or sort of like complex. So like to know like, oh, you can't click this person until you have these 2 prerequisites clicked or something like that. Maybe that's all it is like you need to have Sam and Dave click visible before you can view Sally's answer. So, but yeah, I just, it's very,
you're like, what is the data structure?
How'd they do that? I like those little sort of like, how'd you model this, problem? So I wish I knew more.
Yeah, it's fascinating, really. We just, I like, there's so many different ways you could approach it. I mean, we could sit down and think of 3 different ways to model Clues by Sam. I just had some meetings this week at CodePen that were like, here's a new API that we need to, augment and kind of get ready for the new editor. And, we thought about it from a database perspective first, because of course that like really matters, is like what tables is this going in? Do we need new tables? We could do it with less tables, but why? Who cares? Tables are cheap. Maybe make more tables. Let's do this thing right, And then now that we've got the tables and we all agree on a good, nice structure, which, my opinion on the table structure is worth 1 chicken nugget, where other people on the teams are worth 7 chicken nuggets. Like you kind of got to factor that in. Like, what does it matter what I think the database tables should look like? I'm not my expertise level is low. But of course, I was very opinionated about the design. So now there's an API surface for these database tables needs to come to light. And like, how do you model those too? Like you have to model the database, but you have to model the API also. And like, what are these mutations? Because we're very GraphQL heavy still these days. Like, what should we name them? What should the types be like? What should the inputs look like, and what should the return payloads look like? And you can kind of model that stuff pretty closely to what the data structure are like. And we had one proposal that was a little more close to those lines. And then Rach on our team is like, no, I really tend to model these things, so she's probably done the most of it on what the user actions are, more aligned with what the buttons in the UI are like. Like, here's a button, and you click this button, and the user expects that button to do a thing. The mutation should like be named more after that, and like, who cares what happens with the data? I'll make that happen. Anyway, yeah, there's probably 5 different ways we could have modeled that whole world, but we're just you gotta pick one, and hopefully it's in line with the other ones in your own app, so you're consistent with yourself. Anyway, just a little aside, but it was a little bit of a data modeling week,
Yeah, no, that's fun to do. Yeah, it's hard. It's I've been doing this design tokens. If you flash back to the Brad Frost episode, might be a good place to run the ad.
So we didn't plan this, but we had Brad and Ian on the other day, and they were talking about design tokens and the fact that they have a brand new course called designtokencourse.com. They are interested in sponsoring the show, so we're happy to announce them as sponsors of the show. It's been a minute since we've had a sponsor. Thanks, brothers. And we didn't plan this either. This show happens to be kind of perfect, talking about web components and design systems and all that stuff. That's what they talk about in their course too, but specifically about the concept of design tokens. Listen to that show if you want to deep dive into it. But I'm like sold that having some pretty strong expertise in this matter is good to have, instead of what is my brain is likely to do, and I suspect some of your brains is likely to do, just be like, oh yeah, design tokens, cool, let's wing it, let's just set some up. Even if you're just making websites only, which I do think this stuff probably has a little bit extra bonus value if you're making websites and you're making native apps and you're making billboards and you have some style API. I don't know, there's just, the more there is, the more like things that you target, just like with web components, like Dave is saying, the more like targets there are for those web components, the more value they have. The same is true of design tokens. But I'll tell you, as somebody who has just winged it with design tokens one time, where I'm just like, let's just set up a whole bunch of custom properties and see how it goes. It went okay, but I really wish I could go back and refactor the whole thing according to the system that Brad and Ian lay out in this course, because it's straight up better. There are some like bloating problems with our system that I really didn't foresee, and having some like expertise would have totally prevented that. And that's what you're going to get in this course, among many other things. So it's designtokencourse.com. It's a course that you can buy where you get a bunch of stuff, no big surprises there, but use the coupon code ShopTalkIsAwesome when you buy the course, and we'd appreciate that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I guess we have to do that. But there's this design tokens community group format, the W3C, Gina Ann, all, kind of a lot of different people participating in that. Ideally, we can leverage this format, but it's creating this sort of okay, I have to reshape everything to match this. Oh, you're kind of in between formats. Oh, interesting. Okay, so if I try to use the new format, does it work with the new tools? No, it doesn't. Oh, psych out. I got to go back, So you just kind of, there's been this sort of where skating to where it's going, and then what is actually possible has been kind of interesting. So it's all data. It's just, I'm taking one lump of JSON, I'm turning it into another lump of JSON or into a CSS file, which is kind of just a lump of JSON if you think about it. But yeah.
Cool. So that's work, huh?
Yeah.
I just
take JSON. I'm a JSON munger. That would be my honest to God title right now. JSON munger.
Dude, yeah. I have that word as literally in our code base as well. That there's a munging. I mean, how we look at it, I guess, is that there can be stuff wrong with JSON, as you know, or it needs to be reformatted or cleaned up in some way, especially because it's not particularly typed, and in our world, JSON, usually needs to go through Go code at some point, and Go's tools for dealing with JSON are, in my opinion, rather limited. You can marshal it or unmarshal it, which is I don't know how common are those, like computer science terms or what, but that basically just means, I don't either, and I still don't like it, but it's kind of
turn
just
it
like
into a police officer that goes on an airplane. Is that like a federal marshal? Yeah,
I don't even know that. It's probably showing my ignorance or whatever of what it means, but it's like take some JSON and like in JavaScript, you can take some JSON and get it down into an object. It's not instantly automatically an object. You have to parse it. Essentially, it's parse and unparse or whatever. Or
stringify and
stringify.
Parse. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
but
marshaling.
It's super, like, if there's anything wrong at all with the JSON, it absolutely fails. It's not that it doesn't in JavaScript either. Like you can't JSON parse with like a missing semicolon or a missing brace or something. It'll just fail, right? But it's even more strict in Golang. It's not just the formatting, but if any of if the types are wrong, because everything is typed in Go. So if you say that this this struct or whatever is a string, and in JSON it's a Boolean, it's not happening. It's just gonna fail, So our munger is like, I understand what's happening here. I'll be a little more lenient about the pulling of stuff out. And let's say there's something missing. That would also be an error of sorts. Well, the munger will be like, well, here's a default value then. Or let's say the value is outside of a range. You're saying that I want to parse this JSON, but this value that's coming out of it is 1020, but the limit is 1000. Well, you could describe with our munger, well, then just pull it back down to 1000, or make it because it's invalid, make it the default of 0 or 500 or something. So it's just more lenient and more powerful structure. That's what our munger does. Munge.
Well, you're speaking my language, man. A font weight in Figma is not, usually you set it to like a number, like a 10 or 100 to 1000.
Yeah.
This one got set to semi-bold in the token structure, and it is...
we gotta munge it. Munge it up.
It is dying when I use Style Dictionary to like spit out a style sheet. Style Dictionary is like invalid type. Never heard of this thing. What is it? Because that's because semi-bold is spelled capital SEMI, capital BOLD, which I don't think CSS cares about. Like CSS, I think is case insensitive by default. You have to use that like /I flag to make it case sensitive or something, don't you? Like anyway, there's a way to make it.
It depends.
I don't
like your selectors are case insensitive, but your data
property
attributes
values
are case sensitive, and then the I makes it insensitive. It kind of depends on.
Okay,
like can you write margin in the crazy case, capital
like
M,
SpongeBob
lowercase
case?
a, capital yeah. I think you can. That's fine. But selectors are case sensitive.
Yeah. So I just anyway, it's very. I'm like I types, Chris. I have
Types?
a long history of not being the biggest fan. Okay, I'll go on record as.
But in this case, you wish there was, huh? Did
No.
you switch teams?
I kind of wish the tool would quit being a jerk about it. I kind of wish Style Dictionary would chill the F out. But let people put whatever they want in there.
That's hilarious to me.
I'm losing my mind, dude. But anyway, it's what it is. So there's some CSS is very flexible, man. That's what people don't get. And they want to like put a box around CSS and make it the perfect little box, and you can only do this. You can't do that with CSS, man. Don't put baby in a corner.
Yeah. Well, there's what we could do random news. I happen to, I don't even know how I clicked on the link, but I went to the Web Platform Tests dashboard, which is the dashboard for tracking Interop 2025. Already at 56% of the way so far. And we're about halfway through the year, wouldn't you say? Starting the 7th month of the year. So
we're
good job.
Q3 right here. We're Q3, baby. Q3.
Baby. Yeah, just started it. So good job, Interop team, I'd say. Assuming you started at 0%. I think you did because you picked the list because the thing isn't done. So they're halfway through the year and halfway done. Pretty sweet. It keeps coming up for me because my talk at CSS Day was about scope, and I wanted to talk about all things scope, but of course I think people want to know about and hear about at scope in CSS. Which I keep saying I'm like lukewarm. I'm not really. I like it. It's good. I've convinced myself, but it's also just, you'll just never reach for it. I know nobody's nobody's gonna use it. It's just not useful enough. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I would, but I'm also that kind of crazy, I think, is also my
you
deal,
are a
right?
little unique in this world. Yeah.
I heard you talking shit about the Shadow DOM, Chris. I heard you said it wasn't useful. Or
Did I say that?
I don't know. Maybe Twitter misappropriated it in your talk. You just weren't the fan.
I'm even more and more convinced that I don't even dislike it as much as I thought. I will forever think that there needs to be a better styling solution for it. But even that I'm softening on because of the browsers need to ship it. Maybe it'll be Interop 2026, but there's the idea of CSS module scripts, which is just a way to import with an... I think they stopped calling them type assertions, but I think of them as type assertions. How you can import JavaScript in ESM, you can import JSON, and at the end you used to say assert. That is no longer the case, and it's very hard to find information on this in my experience, but you have to say with. Isn't it with? So you say with? Import. Yeah, you've seen the syntax?
With squiggly type colon JSON.
JSON, and then you get the JSON kind, but you can say with type equals CS or type colon CSS too. Only Chrome supports that. So that's the part where it's little features like this. They're not really polyfillable. They're just like a weight. It's just a weight feature. So what you get then is a constructible style sheet, and a constructible style sheet, you can be like this dot shadow dom dot sheets or whatever it is, and then it's an array, and you just put it in the array, and then boom, the styles are there. So it's not like all mega ergonomic, but it's pretty close. So you can just say, hey, this style sheet, put it in this shadow dom. To me, that's pretty good. Because they're like, I will not style.
That allows you to,
To what? What were you going to say?
Well, it allows you to inject whatever globals you want or whatever, I think good CSS hygiene is to have like a set of utility styles, whether that's you're doing like a full Tailwind MT3, MT4, or if you just really want like some like, type styles like semi-bold or this, or if you want some like, heading ramps like title 100, title 200, or something like that you want to use in your components without like spinning up another component. I think that's like a totally valid use case, to pass a global style sheet into a component. So,
yeah. And I don't know, the word global is heavy there. Maybe what I like is the document structure idea that my component is card or slider or whatever. And my outright refusal to write styles within the JavaScript won't do it, not happening. And I need to write my styles in a .css file because I demand it. And I will put it right next to that component. I'll have card.js, and I'll have card.css, and card.js imports card.css, and I have the document structure that I want. Thank you. Not ready yet. It's not ready because these import type assertions are not everywhere yet.
You know who does this? Everyone since Angular 1. So why don't we have this? I just, it seems like a huge old cow path we should pave and just kind of make it happen.
I mean, you could fetch it and you could jack it into a string and a style tag and stuff, but that's just janky enough that I'm like, nope. No.
Yeah, and not if you're interested in fast element. Actually, the way you compose elements, you can like chuck in your own style sheet, and like
sick, really.
So and so if you're like actually like taking somebody's component, you could like recompose it and then chuck it in. So I was digging around in my blog post drafts today,
Mm-hmm.
like this morning and last night, like just that's what I do on vacation. Just
Yeah.
tag my blog posts, and went through and I found this old post about just like things I was learning about Fast midway through the year this last year at Microsoft. So anyway, that's one unique thing about Fast is it allows you to kind of adopt style sheets sort of on the fly or recompose with different style sheets if you want. So
Yeah.
anyway, it's but it would be cooler if, like you're saying, if it was native, like so when you author components without Fast or
Yeah.
anything, it could just be like that. So
Yeah. So, I mean, are you, I feel like my thinkings on web component stuff is so baby now because you live it and breathe it every single day, right? Like, have you,
making web components every day, interfacing heavily, yes.
yeah. So it's your, whatever, you're a long time into it. Have you gotten stronger opinions about anything, softened opinions?
I think no, I feel the same, which is kind of surprising. Like I think they're a really good technology choice for people who are building systems or components that have to go to different places, right? They have to go to the .NET site. They have to go to even
Yeah.
the React app or the Angular site, and I feel like they
Yeah,
are.
you've always been big on that. Like the second it goes to two places, it's like the perfect tool.
Yeah, I think and I even have this like how hard it is to update from React like 16 to 18, I'm not this isn't a pick on React thing, but like I know people in this predicament, right? You're trying to
Mm-hmm.
move to React 16 to 18. Uh-oh, now we have to update all the components, Like that's a
Mm,
big juke, right? So there's just so
it's true.
there's this poetry to me in this idea that you could have your framework, your app written in React, but your components are web components so that every time you want to change the application, you don't have to change the componentry. Now, that goes against like all of React basically because React's whole thing is everything's a freaking component, but I think what is good about React breaking news. I think what is good about React is that it became a very good tool for application development, if that makes sense. So like it became a very familiar tool for people and highly supported community effort to build things. But I think if you've built all your application and built all these, 40 to 70 UI widgets in React, like now updating your component or you're updating your whole like application now becomes this updating all of your UI components, which can be a heavier lift, I think, than it's pretty involved, right? Than like, a page component.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think web components are a really good solution for that. That's sort of where I was going with that. And I think, they have problems. They have problems. Yeah. I think server side rendering is like, or declarative rendering is kind of what people are gravitating to in the web components community group. Just this more like, if you have a header that doesn't do anything, how do I get it, on the page, or how can I use that, and maybe HTML includes, like we talked about with Jake a couple weeks ago, is the solution to that. Maybe you don't use a web component, right? But I think as long as you have components, you kind of want like the same component interface, I'm
Yeah.
calling this a header, and so I want it to be labeled a dash header,
Yeah. I was hoping that it would be frameworks that would solve that. That like web components were these primitive things, and like I don't really care who does it, but that header needs to be there in the HTML load that comes across the network. So just do it.
Just
Figure it
do
out.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Declarative shadow DOM is here. Use that or something else. I don't care who does it. Just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, could you just, if you detect that it is not interactive or something, could you just like make it, kind of like islands? Like,
Yeah.
could you just declarative shadow DOM it if it's not interactive, and maybe you make me write something for that. But,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
it'd be cool if frameworks solve that.
They do, and they already do in their own way. It's just none of them do it with web components.
Right.
They do it their own way.
They do it their own way, and I think there's a lot of do it my own ways, and that creates a lot of diversity in the component ecosystem, but it creates a lot of weirdness, or yeah. I would like to anyway. I think web components are like a great choice. I think our partners are having great success, and I'm sure you'll hear more about it, but it's just there's
well, that's what actually was in my
cool
talk,
things.
Dave, is that I said because I was talking about scope. Dude, web components or Shadow DOM, I should be specific, is scope. It's really hardcore scope. That's what it's
hardcore
for.
scope. Yeah.
That's the reason that it exists is scoping, right? And so, okay, that it exists. Maybe you reach for it because of its ability to scope. Many people do. And hey, doesn't that sound nice as a way to build kind of a design system that doesn't, that makes naming easier? You don't have to worry about what I called in my talk the bar stool problem, which is an old Thomas Fuchs joke where writing some CSS has implications all over the app that maybe you weren't prepared for. E.g., some CSS walks into a bar and a bar stool and a completely other bar falls over or whatever. That was the silly joke.
That old joke. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's relevant. It makes it feel like CSS has unintended consequences sometimes. Well, it doesn't if it's in the Shadow DOM. You cannot reach out of it. So like there's all them bar stools are just upright like they should be. And not only is this theoretical, it's not theoretical at all. Every single major design system is built with web components that use Shadow DOM. All of them. So
yeah,
it's one of those things about web components. Like they don't need you to like them or your permission. It's already happening. So,
yeah, there is this weird web components aren't great for design system posts or whatever, and I'm like, I'm confused because literally that's my job. We're doing it and it's fine and it works great. Or like, don't use Shadow DOM. I see a lot of those posts out there, and I'm like, dude, it's kind of working. It's kind of fine. Yeah. A lot of people use it. But I'm also up for experimentation. If you want to do a web component that uses no Shadow DOM, dude, have fun. Make that flavor of ice cream. That's what's cool about web components is there's kind of a multiple ways thing. But I hate these sort of this is better. Therefore, I feel like it sort of undermines the work that people are already doing successfully. That's where I would put my comment.
Sure.
But there's actually, I'm looking at some data now. I don't know how public it is. I should probably be careful, but Shadow DOM's really fast, Chris. Compared to other ways to style things, chucking it into a adopted style sheet, a constructed style sheet is super fast and super good and very efficient to style.
I absolutely believe that. It has a subset of DOM that it has to deal with, which means it's just more efficient at figuring out what it needs to do.
Dude. It's like a bunch of baby trees instead of a big dumb tree or a big confusing tree. So, so that's
probably some implicit promises that it's not going to get messed with as much, less.
Yeah,
style invalidations or whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't care. Oh, you styled in H1. I literally don't care. Did you use a custom property? Yeah, okay, maybe I need to know that, but I doesn't matter, dude. That your H1 style, it means nothing here. And in the shadow realm, here in the shadow realm, your H1 means nothing.
Right.
So good, right? It doesn't matter. Your ID selector. I laugh at your ID selector. Pitiful.
Well, do you have any other topics, Dave? Do you want to toss one out, or do you want me to keep sprinkling them at you?
Well, so our friend Brian Cardell wrote about web monetization on his blog.
Did he really?
Yeah, a little
Cardell
bit.
Post?
Yeah, you gotta go to the. Is it B Cardell? B Cardell? Yeah, bcardell.com. He wrote.
That's funny because behind the scenes I heard you asking him about it, and he's like, I can't say much, and then he just blogs it immediately.
Well, not entirely, but it was a bird jumped on my shoulder after I posted about web monetization. I think I was on the P and B blog,
Okay.
Manuel's P and B blog thing, and I mentioned web monetization. I just was sort of saying like, hey, like what, it would just be cool if web monetization came back. Maybe without
Right.
all the
Let's
crypto
do it for the users
grift.
real quick, I called you users. Sorry, listeners, friends of the show,
Friends?
Shopomaniacs. Web
Yeah,
monetization
Shopomaniacs.
as a like a actual web platform feature is what we're talking about here, which has never happened despite lots of efforts, and it's not dead, but I don't know, it's one of those things where like sometimes it gets progress and then it gets stalled and whatever, but it has some really cool ideas in it. It was essentially like expressed itself as a meta tag, isn't that right? Or at least that was part of it.
Yeah,
And
it's
that
a
would be
meta.
like, okay, this meta tag is attached to an online wallet, and that would unlock the ability to like ask for payment to that wallet. And then there was APIs so that that kind of stuff could talk together. Like ask the user for $1. And they can be like, okay or no. And then you would get the answer okay or no. And if they said okay, the payment would be tried. And if the payment was successful, you'd get responses back. This all happened in JavaScript, you know? And what was cool is then if you get like, oh, that user actually paid, you could use that in JavaScript to unlock stuff. So I always thought like, hey, on this show, not that we would do this, but this is just an example. It's like, hey, do you want to download the MP3 for this show? Well, you got to give us a quarter. And if you give us a quarter, then you can download the MP3 because it costs us a few cents in bandwidth. And then, we mark it up a little bit because that's how business works. And then you can download the thing. That's kind of a micro payment concept, where it could even be like, oh, to remove ads from this site, it costs you a penny. Or you could give us, $10 and then we'll remember that you've paid us $10. And even anonymously, which is another miracle of how all this works, you'll never see ads again on the site. Wouldn't that be cool? There was some rough edges. There was some speed concerns. There's some, the fact that this ties really nice to crypto and not everybody likes crypto. There's concerns, lots of stuff, but it was pretty cool and interesting and certainly would become a bigger deal if these actual browser APIs and specs went through, and they never really did. So far.
And it was just kind of this idea, I think we both signed up for Coil. We were kind of hot on it. We could just like give pennies. We could just, send pennies to people, and at first I was like getting a bunch of pennies, and then slowly I was getting no pennies, which is a little bit sus, kind of like they boosted it, like YouTube views get boosted. And then
it turned into actual money for me just because CSS Tricks was just a fairly high traffic, and I put them on CodePen too. It was, so whatever few Coil users there was enough that it turned into like hundreds and thousands of dollars, never like mega, but pennies worked at a high enough level. They worked. And that was with just Coil. And we always thought, oh, this will 100x or 1000x or millionx if it was actually in browsers.
Yeah, wouldn't it be cool? And so I just always thought that was like, if we're in an attention economy, like I'm giving my pennies to people I'm giving attention to. Now, would all my pennies go to dumb YouTubers? Yeah. But, like maybe that's fine too. Like I kind of want my money to disperse that way, like to people I watch. If I watched, I guess my money does do that because I don't pay for YouTube. I watch ads and then ads run and those people get paid when ads run. But like, if I was paying for premium, they would just reward people based on how much I watched, right? So, it's sort of that, but for the entire internet, it's sort of like YouTube Premium for the entire internet is how I sort of think of it. It's like if I'm on your website and I'm reading it and referencing it, like you take my pennies, man, take them, like, or if I like that idea of like, if you could like just be like, hey, this cost $2. I put a lot of effort into this, and I'm not going to send you to like a Gumroad thing, but this costs $2 to view, Like,
I'm way more interested in that than the pennies thing, because I just feel like the pennies thing is neat, but probably has like limited adoption just because of how weird it is. But like the $2 and then you can download my comic book is just, there's all the evidence in the world that people want to do that.
Yeah, I just think like, and it's kind of just a one-off or a like a, I get an instant gratification because I just clicked my browser button to like give you $1, and then you come back. Anyway, so the drama, I guess, is, a bird flew by me and told me, hey,
what did
I
the
heard
bird
you, I
say?
saw you on Manuel's thing, which has like a Ko-Fi link, right? Like a coffee link at the top, right? So like,
Okay.
obviously this is something we need, but he's just like, hey, how do you feel about monetizing your blog and, generating revenue? And I was like, I don't care, but like in a perfect world, web monetization would exist. And somebody saw that and sent me a link to a Chrome PR, like a PR to Chromium from Agalia that was like, hey, we are kind of working on this. And so I reached out to Brian, and then thankfully he wrote on his blog so we can talk about it now. But it's called Web Bucks is the post. But, he has like this whole history of micropayments going back to the 90s and how people are like, it'll never work. This is so stupid, but he's kind of making the case like Brave has the basic attention tokens. It's not the same, but it's a similar concept, but then
that worked great for me too, because back in the day, I think they still have this. I'm not sure if I do anymore, but I was like, it was one of those things where just with a few clicks or a meta tag or whatever, you kind of claim your own site, and then the BATs of and this was specific to the Brave browser, but there's a lot of people that use the Brave browser. You'd get their pennies. That was the agreement when you set it up. And I got a lot of pennies. It was good for me. It was just another thing where it's like, look at this stuff actually works, dude.
Well, in that scale, it's great. And even as like I will say as Dave Rupert, like even on a small scale, like if my blog made me 30 cents a month or bought me a liquid death, like $3, dude,
that's still kind of
I'm
cool.
so motivated to keep doing
especially
it,
if it like goes into the same wallet, like the same wallet that you use to buy
and
liquid
I'm sending
deaths
money
is where
out.
it goes into.
Yeah. Oh, God, it's so great.
You know what was neat too is that they thought about it. At least Coil did, and I know we're about to talk about some different services, but they allowed you to hook it up to your YouTube channel too, which I thought was clever, because some people are like, yeah, that's neat and all, but like I don't have my own web enterprise of my own. I have Instagram and I have other stuff. That's and most people do. Most people don't own their own web enterprise. But that was a smart thing that Coil did, is like if you hook it up to your YouTube channel, then like when you watch videos of that YouTube user, you are getting the pennies there too. That's smart.
I remember I was like on Twitch or something, and it's like Dave gave 3 bits or something, and I was like, I did what? Like, I was like, did I get hacked? And it was like, no, that was Coil doing the thing. Like, it was just like dropping money in the wallet. And I just was like, this is so great. So, Brian's post like mentions like Bing has like Bing rewards, which like he's calling Bing bucks. And like, I think we've talked about it on the show before, but you do a search, you get a little point, and you can turn that point into Robux for your kids. And, everyone's happy,
Who gives you the buck?
Microsoft, yeah, that's kind of like their incentive to use their thing instead of somebody else's thing. Yeah. So
cool.
Ecosia is a thing where you do searches and then they go off and plant trees. I watched a really good video about this. Tree planting's a little sus, but like I watched a video yesterday about
because there's ads.
Yeah, they run ads, and then that's where the ads turn into trees. Basically, they're not a B Corp nonprofit, but they like. But then I watch one where they're digging these like foxhole things, which are better than tree planting in some areas, So anyway, but then Brian mentioned this product from Google. So Google Ad Tech. So like take that. But it's called Offerwall, and it hooks up into a thing called SuperTab.
Which Google made this thing, or is it a third-party deal?
I think it's a Google thing, and it lets you, like throw up a little paywall, which sort of sucks, but like, it gives you like 3 or 4 options to pay. I was going to try to like, you can view a short ad, you could select interests,
that
for 12 hours.
Spicy, the second one.
I don't like that one. Because that's
because it's proving
profile me, daddy.
Profile that. It's Smurf out of me. Yeah,
But then
it's like,
put
what's
it on
your
my
skin color? You know, like that's what it's saying
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, no, thank you. That's weird.
of these 4 people, who do you most identify with? Or,
Yeah, right. It's like a veiled way of being like, do
Yeah.
you have any money or not? I'm going to use a really crappy proxy to figure that out.
Yeah. If you were to point to your net worth on this chart, what would it be? And then put it on my tab is like access for 25 cents for 24 hours is what it says here on this little
That you pay
screenshot.
later? What do you mean pay later? Like, does
Well,
it accumulate interest?
Yeah.
Does it?
Yeah, I think it just like racks up a bill, a tab. Like it like, it's
Which
like,
you'll
hey,
forget to pay and they'll report it to your credit agency?
no, they got your credit card, dude. They're charging you every month. You know what I mean? They're running it at
Pay
the end of the
later
month.
is I bristle at that term. But I know I'm being negative here, but I actually kind of think this looks cool in a weird
It's
way.
Klarna for articles.
Like, I don't know, assuming you can pick the ones that you want,
Yeah, and then the other one was like subscribe to a news or subscribe
just straight up
like
give
a
us
monthly
money.
sub or whatever, which is that's interesting too. I'd be curious, like there's all this back end stuff, like how do you like
Offer wall.
but anyway,
Cool.
you're my offer wall.
Well, it kind of turns the tables. Like, usually publishers have to decide, how are we going to monetize this? Are we going to do ads? Are we going to do memberships? Are we going to do a combination? What are we going to do? And this says like, well, I don't care which one we do. The users get to pick which one they want to do. That's neat.
Yeah, well, and then they also have this idea of like, I'm looking at the SuperTab website, supertab.co. They have this idea of like a bot paywall. Like, okay, LLM, you want to crawl my site? Guess what? That's $99.99 to do that trick,
That SuperTab is doing that? Because Cloudflare
that's-
announced that this week as well, a little pay-to-crawl thing.
Yeah,
I
dude,
totally signed up for it immediately. I
would-
was like, yeah.
I'm down. Like,
We did not block bots on CodePen, mostly because like we're really busy, and sometimes when we like that type of thing is, of course, interesting and worth talking about, but you need to balance it. You're like, if all of a sudden every day you're like, oh, now we have to have a meeting about how we're going to handle bots. It's like, dude, we're too small. We can't have a meeting about every getting thing,
No,
So we
can
just
only
did nothing.
Zone, right? You can only zone. You can't like put everybody on a defense every time they get the ball. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So but then this came up and we talked about it enough that we're like, you know what? Why don't we just sign up for this? And by sign up, it means signal your interest to Cloudflare that you would be perhaps willing to do this when they're ready. So pretty lightweight. But Cloudflare, because they, as I've said frequently, is a genius move, has your, they're like DNS or whatever between you and your website. Could they know what bots look like, and when the bot comes, you can be like, nope. They already have a blocking tool, but this wouldn't respond with nope. It would respond with, sure, you can come on through. Give me a quarter.
Mm-hmm. Dude.
Give me a quarter. You can come right in here. Very theoretical whether that would work, but
Yeah, I'm sure.
I like
will.
offering a hat out to these these companies. They didn't ask us to crawl our content, not a little bit. And now they're not even crawling it how Google used to crawl it. They're crawling the absolute bejesus out of it. So now they're not only is it not cool that they're crawling it at all, but they're just crawling it constantly, and just tons of them, and they're hiding themselves, and they don't respect the bots .txt and all this. So if we found a way to actually block it and be like, hey, though, it's cool, just give me a quarter, I think that's hilarious. That's just an amazing way to turn the tables, but do it on the high ground. Don't just do what they did, but just be like, hey, no, just give me a quarter. I mean, I keep saying a quarter, but more like give me $50,000.
Well, or whatever I'm sure there's going to be a rate or like a market rate or something, like.
Eventually, if it actually took off. I do want to say that it doesn't fix this other interesting problem, because like, let's say you're Automatic and you run WordPress.com or something, and you're interested in this potentially too. I think they've already like brokered deals with that, but you know who gets the money from that? Automatic does. Guess who produced the content for them? Just people. You and me did. You know what I mean? So now it's it was rich people doing a thing to benefit rich people. Now it's again the rich people. It's not like the money that let's say OpenAI is like, fine, we'll pay your pay to crawl thing. Where else is all that money gonna go? Not to the people who wrote the words.
No, to the silo. It goes to the silo, right?
Right. So I want to be like conscious of that as CodePen, that if we do that, I don't know what's going to happen or if the money will be significant or not. But it's like, again, like, yes, we're doing a lot of the work. Believe me, it's a lot of work running this business. And maybe it does make sense for us to benefit from the money in this way. But the content came from people who made stuff on CodePen.
Yeah.
So I always want to be like very careful and conscious about that.
That's where the web payments or web is that what web monetization API was interesting.
It's
just
in the hands of the creator.
Yeah, like because you could offer people the creators to be like, put your wallet here, and like let people like, I think I have pens that have my wallet on it, just to see what would happen, and like my now defunct wallet, so I should remove it. But like that's like a what is that cool? That's cool. Like that would be a cool way for people to get paid, like maybe it's not through OfferWall like, specifically or some Google content thing, but like maybe
so this like was just Brian shouting out some new tools, or did he have a other point?
No, dumping some thoughts. He did I think kind of hint that like they were working on something, if I recall. Maybe I spoiled this. Full disclosure, Igalia has been working on some prototype work in Chromium. So anyway, I said a pull request, but it's just like the like intent to prototype, so don't no one get too sensitive there, but it's just sort of this idea of like
that's probably further than it's ever gotten, isn't it?
As far as I know, ever been, yeah. So
there was work put in on specs and stuff, and that was cool too, because you need some like agreement and alignment before you're prototyping stuff. So, but maybe that's cool that this next thing is maybe actually gonna hit a browser. That'd be cool.
I also think it's worth noting, I think money follows money. Does that make sense? Like, oh, they're making money, I should go put my money at the thing that makes money, right? Like, I think it's just good for the web. We've done so much about
exactly right. I think that's why the snowballing looks so appealing to people, is they can imagine what happens when money follows money.
Yeah, like if suddenly you can make money on the internet again, like in a non-invasive way that respects privacy, and man, more money bucks from companies might go to the website or go to I think I know ad blocking is such a sensitive topic, especially around privacy. Like it is generally pretty horrific, right? But like if we all block ads, like 60% on smashing and CSS tricks, right? Guess what? Those sites don't have as much money and may go away, like it's just that's how it is, man. It's like, so we need to make sure money keeps going into creators' hands, people we care about, or else, I mean, I could get full Bernie Sanders here. Otherwise, it's going to the billionaires.
Yeah.
If it's not going to the people, it's going to the billionaires.
I also think that there's innovation happens when you give people primitives like this, that it's not just like, hey, look it could be like OfferWall. OfferWall's like one of the first attempts at something along the lines that this stuff would unlock. When you give people a primitive that's just like, oh, here's an API that allows you to ask for some money, who knows the interesting things people will do with that. Like, it hasn't settled into what the best practices would be yet. It hasn't even started.
Yeah, we don't even know, like there's no clue. We have no idea what it'd do, so.
Yeah. Because some stuff's got to fall into place, like nobody's going to do it if the only thing it takes is Bitcoin or whatever. And I know that's not already the case, but there needs to be like good banks and stuff. It would be nice if my Chase Bank would just give me the meta tag for it that allows incoming only. And then it's like, okay, well, then it's just my Chase. It's just my business bank account. So sweet,
Yeah, and if Chase or whoever they partner with is like, and we'll, if you hit the OK button, we'll put $10 in your penny bucket,
Yeah,
and
that's
then
how
we'll
it kind
just
of
start.
needs to be really
You
popular.
know, yeah, I think and I think we again, it's kind of like YouTube Premium for the entire web, if we can think about it like that. That would be a really great goal for us. I think, yeah, there's. If I'm wrong, somebody write an article, send it to me, and let me know. But I just that I can't help but think that would be a good thing for most things. To, you know,
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
will be bad
Yeah.
actors, and so maybe that's it too. We got to pre-brainstorm how people might take advantage of this. Just BS content or whatever. Or spam gets. So I don't know.
Yeah, and maybe it'll go nowhere too. I should point that out too. Like every time I get thinking about this, I'm like, God, this is a good idea. They should do this. But in the same way that it's like, God, we should do, Navigator in the or whatever.
Free energy. We should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
should
that's
do.
on a huge scale and a really
Yeah.
small scale. I'm like, oh, you know what? Its corner shape is really nice in CSS too. Like at the smaller scale. Like I just think it's just a good idea as a standard, and let's do it and see what happens. We don't have to. It's cool to think big, but you don't have to. You can think small or medium too. Just to think that it's just a thing that should exist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, we're gonna.
We should wrap it up.
Well,
Thank you.
We got things to do.
We got websites to cook, tokens to munch. We got a lot going on. So thank you, dear listener, for downloading this in your podcatcher of choice. Be sure to shard it up. That's how people find out about the show. Be sure to follow us on one of the good ones, and then join us in the Discord, where we're talking about Clues by Sam. So thank you, Discord, for delivering on entertainment. So that's patreon.com/shoptalkshow. And Chris, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
Or shoptalkshow.com. Which we will almost definitely put the web monetization API on if we get it. Bye-bye.
I'm charging you.